Hello and welcome back to your track two session. I'm Danae and I am your host over here. And I just wanted to take a moment real fast and thank all of our sponsors again for their contributions to this event and to making this possible. So thank you again to all of our sponsors. Today, we're actually going to be hearing from Giri Bek, who is going to talk to us about mindfulness and meditation and how we can utilize these in navigating this journey with ocular melanoma, a cancer diagnosis, all the stress and the crazy that comes with that. I am really excited to hear from her personally. So let's go ahead and welcome Giri as she is, and I'll just finish introducing her. So Giri is from Giri Bek of Radiant Health has been practicing and teaching breathwork, yoga, mindfulness, and meditation for over 20 years. She has experienced amazing benefits for herself and her students, and she knows personally that receiving a diagnosis in the family that is life changing can throw the nervous system into overwhelm. And unless we have the tools to regulate ourselves, that feeling of calm and peace may feel like a distant thing of the past. So, thank you, Giri, for being here with us. And we will go ahead and just let you walk us through some mindfulness and meditation tools to walk us through those fears.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a journey for me to get where I am today. I hope that I can offer something that can be useful, helpful for people on their journeys. I first was introduced to cancer back when I was about 25. My mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. And at that time in my life, I did not have any tools whatsoever to cope with even regular life, let alone a diagnosis like that in my family. So it was a very, very difficult time for me. And about 5 years later, while she was still struggling, and I was working with her as best I could with little or no tools, I started to be introduced to yoga and different breath techniques. And I started to notice a difference. Um, in the beginning, I was just really hoping that my mother would do in her treatment protocols what I thought was right for her. And she had resistance to that and wanted to do things in her way. And so there was a lot of conflict in it. That wasn't necessary, I believe, at that time, because I was just not accepting of that it was her life and her choice of the type of treatments that she wanted to receive. And it just added a lot to the stress. So one of my messages for people, because I know I'm not the only one that this type of thing happens to. So my message is, like, to learn to let people, we have a saying, live and let live, and to just support people in whatever their decisions are for their life. It's great to offer support and especially opinions if they're asked for. But I was not asked my opinion, but certainly wanted to tell it to anyone who would listen. So I did learn a lot from that, and I hope that if anyone needs to hear that they do. So near in the next 5 years, because my mother had breast cancer for 10 years, and in the next 5 years it began to get easier when I brought some of these tools on board and was able to change the way that I was approaching the situation. And I was able to take better care of my own self and show up so much differently. And I I just feel like, you hear about putting your own oxygen mask on in the plane, and then you're able to help someone else. I feel like that's so, so important for friends, family members, caregivers take care of yourself first, and then you can be a lot more helpful um, to your person. Um, Fast forward um, to 10 years ago when my late husband was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. Um, Very out of the blue. He was someone who took care of himself in many ways, especially on the physical level. He ate a very good diet. He exercised every day. He did yoga every day. He swam a mile most days. So he really had that portion of it taken care of. But there was a lot of unresolved trauma that he was still holding, and intergenerational trauma. And so there was a lot of emotional stuff that hadn't been dealt with. And um, the diagnosis came very quickly. He had had a colonoscopy 3 years prior and was told he was clear, come back in 5 years. And there was no indication that anything was going on. And I was his primary caregiver, and I had at that time all of these tools and the breath work and the mindfulness and knowing how to ground myself into the present moment and into my body, and to not just be living in my head. What if this? What if that? All of those things that can keep us in a place of fear. um, so the experience was extremely different. And the type of experience, if you have to go through something like that with someone, then I would hope you would have these resources for yourself, and also to practice with your person. It's not just for you. It's a great These are great tools for the person who was diagnosed and the person who is supporting, or the whole family. It's very beautiful when you see a whole family practicing together for healing. So I think I'd like to start with just, the very basic thing that I think helped me the very most, which was coming to awareness of my breath. I suffered from anxiety a lot when I was young, and I see now it was because I wasn't breathing in my belly. I was a shallow chest breather, and I was not grounded. So that gives a feeling of anxiety, even under quote unquote normal circumstances. So when you're in a situation like this where you need your coping skills more than ever, then it's so vitally important to learn how to breathe properly. So I'll just have you right now, wherever you are, if you're comfortable with it, you just bring your hands onto your belly and get to feel around in there, and notice as you breathe, is there any movement there? And perhaps you can take one hand and place it on your chest and just notice where's the movement in your body when you're breathing. And also notice, without any judgment, whether your breath is shallow or deep or slow or fast. And again, notice, where is it happening? Where is the body moving as you breathe in and out? And if you're comfortable, when we do these practices, you may even want to close your eyes to pull that awareness even deeper within. So take a really deep breath in through your nose and just notice, where is everything happening? Does your abdomen expand out as you breathe in? Because that's where we want to go. If you're not there already, that's where we want to go. And maybe you really need to keep both hands on your abdomen and apply even a little pressure, just so that your awareness stays there. And breathe in and really expand. Keep your belly nice and soft. We've kind of been conditioned to hold our belly in, but now is the time to keep it soft and let it expand out as you take a deep breath in. And as you exhale, again, let it slide back down towards the spine. Inhale, expanding. And as you exhale, allow your whole body to relax. Inhale, you're energizing yourself. And as you exhale, use that breath out to just kind of let go of the body. So notice in this moment whether you were holding tension somewhere. Maybe a popular tension holding spot is the shoulders, the neck. So that's where I hold my tension a lot. So just notice that. Maybe you want to squeeze your shoulders up around your ears for a moment, squeeze it tight, and then drop them down and notice. So it's about noticing a lot, not judging, but noticing. And as you become aware of where you hold your attention, and maybe you're not breathing that much or very deeply, and maybe sometimes you even hold your breath. If you bring awareness to it, then you have the possibility of making a change, right? If you are like me for so many years and you just go on and never even notice, there's no possibility of making it any different. So that's the first step, just to notice. And notice when you breathe in, maybe even 2 or 3 times is all it takes. You feel like you've arrived in this moment. Because your awareness is not on the regular thinking, worrying, thoughts about what ifs, you're taking your awareness out of that and bringing it to your body. And then noticing. And there's where you can make the changes. And your breath and your mind are very closely connected. So when you slow down your breath, your mind will also slow down. That's really important to remember. In those moments, right? And we're all going to have those moments where you're literally freaking out. You have the ability to change that. You may not be changing the outer circumstances, okay? We need to know that. But nothing outside of yourself needs to change in order for you to feel some peace. I know that might be really hard to swallow at some points, but I know this for a fact. I know it for myself and thousands of people I've worked with. So just remember that. You can do these practices, go into your own little world for a while, regulate your nervous system, and then come back at your life renewed, rejuvenated, ready to take on the next thing. Because you can only live in that fight, flight, freeze state for so long before you will start to break down yourself. And we can handle a lot of stress. Believe me, I can't even imagine the amount of stress that I can handle today. It's unbelievable to me, only because I have these tools to balance it out. It's the only thing that saved me so many times. Otherwise, if I was just going along at that adrenaline rush speed without any respite, then I don't know what would have happened, but it wouldn't have looked good. I know that. So use just that very simple tool to start with. And you can do that anywhere. And you can start to add things into that while you're standing in the supermarket lineup. You can do your breathing, slow 10 deep breaths. You don't have to close your eyes if you're not in a position that it's conducive. So you can scan your body mentally. Start at the feet. I breathe in, I notice my feet. I breathe out, my feet relax. Moving up. I notice my legs. Exhale, legs relax. Moving up to the hips. Inhale, I notice my hips. Exhale, hips relax, and so on. So you're bringing yourself all the way up, relaxing the mind, and then once the mind is relaxed, you're completely relaxed. That is the last thing that's still holding on to either the past or the future. When you come completely in this present moment, everything is okay. If you're not thinking about what's going to happen next, everything is okay in this present moment. You can get through this present moment. So that's something that you can do anywhere, basically anywhere. At the stoplight, I've done that at the stoplight. Uh, I used to live in a place that had a really hectic traffic, and I used that one a lot in the car. So, the next thing I wanted to go through with you was something that if you could, I don't know if you're sitting down or if you could possibly even lie down, make sure you're in a comfortable position, whatever that is, and make sure you're warm, because I really want to go into a little bit something a little deeper now. So I want you to think about who you are beyond this diagnosis, whether it's for you or someone you care about. And we have to remember that that part of us is remaining present through all of it, through everything that happens to us through our lives. There's that one part of us that remains constant, that remains unchanged by everything. Because we all know that a lot of this heavy stuff changes us, right? But there's that part. And in yoga, we say the cause of all of our suffering is that we have forgotten who we really are. So, at our core being, right? Beyond this personality self. So, the best way I know to get you to a place of peace beyond the fear, beyond the what ifs, is to bring you back to that and let all the other layers go. So we do this with first relaxing the body, and then I'll take you on a little journey, a visualization journey. So again, we're focusing on that breath, and if it feels like something you need, you can have the hands, one on the chest, one on the belly, or both on the abdomen, and begin to bring that breathing to a fuller breath and a slower breath. And maybe even mentally count. It's always a good idea to keep your mind busy with something other than your regular thoughts that may be stressful. Count. Counting is amazing. So you can count to 3 on the inhalation and 4 on the exhalation. If that works for your lung capacity, you can cut it down if it doesn't. We always can make the practice work for each person. So breathing in, just mentally, 1, 2, 3. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. And carry on like that. It's always a good idea to try and make that exhale just a little bit longer if possible, but never straining, because that's not going to relax your body if you're straining, right? So if you need to do one inhale, two exhale, whatever is going to work for you. So as you continue to do that breath, we'll just start to squeeze the different parts of our body. So similar to the scan that we just talked about, we're just going to squeeze different parts. And then, like we did with the shoulders, you will notice when you squeeze and then relax, oh yeah, there was some tension there. Now it's not there. Okay. And we'll move around the body. So first, just do the toes, squeeze the toes in, squeeze the feet, squeeze, and then relax. So it might help to even just like take a breath, squeeze your legs, squeeze, hold it, hold the breath, hold the tightening, and then relax. And then we come up to the hips, squeeze the hips, squeeze, and let go. And moving up to the abdomen, notice the abdomen, squeeze your abdomen, and let go. And now just the entire back, squeeze all the muscles in the back, and let go. And now the hands, make fists with the hands, squeeze, and relax. And the arms, squeeze all the muscles in the arms, tight, and let go. And now the shoulders. Squeeze the shoulders up once again. Squeeze. I like to move my head around and just notice that neck. I have old neck injuries and I could feel them. That's where the tightness will go and settle in if I don't keep that loose. So relax that neck and shoulders. And now just make a face like a prune with all the muscles of your face. Squeeze the face together, scary face, prune face, and open the face. And we even stick out the tongue. Like a lion. All right. And just move the body around, shake it up a little bit. Sometimes it just feels good to make an audible sigh. So you breathe in through the nose, and then exhale through a mouth and make a noise. Get connected to your throat, the self-expression center. All right. So now your body is more relaxed and you're concentrating on your breathing coming in and out. Slowing the breath down even more. And the mind may wander. That's okay. Your mind is not trained yet to stay on the anchor or anchors. So it may wander off into the past, into the future, and we just keep noticing. Oh, there I go again. No judgment. That's never helpful. And then just bringing it back. Oh yeah, I was doing this. Okay, I'm focusing on my breath. And that's the training. And it seems simple, and it is, but it's powerful. It took me probably 6 whole months to train myself from breathing in my chest all the time to breathing in my belly all the time. And of course, that got better and better over the 6 months. But at around the 6-month mark, I realized I'm breathing in my belly all of the time now. Perfect. Now, the body's relaxed. You're breathing in and out deeply. I want you to follow my guidance. If you're comfortable, again, Have your eyes closed. Bring that awareness inward, away from the outside world. I want you to picture yourself walking towards a lake. So you're out in nature, you're walking towards a lake. You're feeling very well, and you're walking slowly towards the lake. You're taking in all the beautiful fresh air from the trees giving you oxygen. And you're getting closer and closer to the lake. And as you come upon the lake, you peer down and you see a perfect reflection of yourself. Beyond these ever-changing thoughts and emotions, you see a part of yourself that is changeless. And it's who you were before all this. And it's who you'll always be at your very essence. And it is pure peace and love. And you remember who you really are. At your very core, you recognize that peace. You may not have had connection with it for some time, and you're grateful to remember. And you rest in peace with that part of yourself for a few moments. Feeling the calm and peace that is you. Who you are beyond this body, mind. This part of you that is unaffected by everything. Remember and know that you can come back to this place whenever you want, because it's always there. It never left. But we pile so much on top of it that we can no longer feel it. We can no longer connect to it. And gently come back to this present surrounding. Become aware of this moment. And keep this remembrance of who you really are. In those moments, remember, because the moments will come. We understand this. I don't like to sugarcoat anything. There's some tough times. but we can get through them if we have the resources. If not, then, like I was, a complete mess, a complete mess, and not useful to anyone, let alone myself. So we take these moments, and for me, I was used to practicing hour and a half to 2 hours per day of yoga type breathing meditation type practices. And of course, when my husband was diagnosed, I didn't have that kind of time to practice anymore. So I needed to extract the things that were most helpful to me, trim them down so that I could still fit them into my life. Otherwise, I would have still been that mess that I was years ago with my mom. So I'll show you a couple other things. This has been a pretty challenging year and a half for many of us beyond ocular melanoma, right? Um, and something I've found has been extremely helpful for me that is so simple, and I don't even know how I started doing it, but it might have just been an intuitive thing. But I am pretty empathic and I tend to take on other people's energies, and I work with that, and sometimes it seems like a real gift and other times not so much. So I don't know if any of you can relate to that. Um, but when I feel like it's just all kind of getting to be up around here, like it's getting to be too much, I've been doing this just in through the nose and through pursed lips as long as exhale as I can manage. It just looks like this. That is, it's like a pressure release, that blowhole kind of a thing. It's like a release of the pressure and moving on. Of course, I don't do that probably in front of people, but I've definitely done it in a room with people that I needed to do it with, and I've like just turned my head. They didn't see that I was doing that, but it's helped me through some really tough moments. Can you just try it right now to see how that is for you? Deep breaths in through the nose. And you can even visualize like a pressure cooker with the steam coming out of it, or something that reminds you of a pressure release, because the pressure is building every day. And like I said before, we can handle so much more than we think we can if only we have these tools to balance it out. So that's one that I've been using more than anything. And, I say to people, do these practices when, it's not like the worst moment in the world, right? So that you can rewire your brain to have that as a go to. Otherwise, if if you don't practice that all week after today, and then next week something happens where you're, ah, do you think that you'll remember to do this? Probably not, I'm venturing to guess, because you're still rewired, or you're wired to cope with that the way you always have. And maybe it's time for a upgrade. So your coping is a little more balanced. So practice the things in the pretty good times too, and then you can call on it in that moment when you really need it, and it'll be there for you, like at the tip of your fingertips. It won't be, what was that thing again? You know it. It's rewired. That, okay, whenever I'm having this kind of a moment, I do this or this or this. And it's good to have a few tools in your box, because some of them you can do, like I said, right out in the open where no one even knows. You can look quite normal, even though you're doing a body scan and no one has to know. Or you can excuse yourself to the restroom and just do um, this next one I'll show you. This is, we work a lot with sound and sound therapy and vibration. Even in our breath work, is the foundation of it is to change vibration. Um, but singing, any type of singing, I've always been very drawn to singing. Even though I don't have a great singing voice, I love to sing. And humming, all of these things really change your vibration and open up that throat, because we have suppressions in our throat. We really need to clear that energy pathway. So singing, humming, and I'll show you this one. This is one we do sometimes within a yoga nidra, which is a type of very deep meditation that um, uses all kinds of different techniques, breathing and bringing your awareness around the body and such. But bumblebee breath, it's called. And it's just like a humming. And if you are not in a position to be able to do the bumblebee breath, you could just do the humming, because humming is also good for activating the vagus nerve. I don't know if you have all heard about that, but it's very important in regulating your nervous system. And when you do the deep diaphragmatic breath, it actually accesses that. So that's one of the reasons why the deep breath relaxes you so much. So the bumblebee breath is, and you may or may not want to do this part of it. You don't have to, but I find it a little bit more effective, is to take the thumbs just around the back of the earlobes and then very gently close the ears off somewhat. Again, gently. And then you just make a humming sound like a bumblebee. So it's like this. I know some of these things seem weird, but that's okay. They work. It's really worth it to do some weird stuff, especially if they work. So, can you give it a try right now? If you try it now, it's going to be easier for you to remember next time you are searching for some tool to use. And you just notice if you feel more relaxed after. So we'll do it one breath, okay? So take a deep breath in through the nose, and you can do the ears or not. It doesn't matter. And then take a moment to notice. I just feel this sense of peace, and it's like the mind has gone quiet, which is really what we're looking for, right? So if you remember nothing else that I've said today, remember the belly breath. It's like the foundation of any of these things. So we're we're walking through fear, right? Fear is a normal reaction. Where do you feel the fear? Like for me, it's in my guts, and everything feels like it's contracted. It's like a ball in my guts. That's where I feel the fear. And when I start to breathe in my belly, it opens and energy starts to flow there, because this contraction, there's no energy flowing there, right? So opening that up, letting the energy flow, and that really dissipates the level of fear for sure. And the fear, it's a natural response, and it can either have you go into some action, or for me, like it did for many years, it paralyzed me. I couldn't do anything. So we need to somehow learn to work with it. It's going to be there. Again, we understand that it's a normal part of reacting to a situation where you don't know what the heck's happening. So we we want to um, bring ourselves to the present moment, and we do that by breathing into the belly. That's the number one thing that I want you to remember, and hopefully you'll remember some of the other tools as well. But that's number one. And I think that we have some links for you to practice with me at a later time. Uh, if you want some guidance to guide you along in a practice, I'm pretty sure we have some links for you in the chat for that.
Wonderful. I was going to ask you if you had some kind of a way that we could practice with you in the future, um, just for the sake of doing something like that, so that we can have that guidance during the breath work. I know, like, I have done short meditations for a pretty long time, and it is something, like you said, that it becomes more natural. But at the beginning, it does help to have that guidance and someone just kind of cueing you on where you should be trying to feel your breath and what it would feel like. And just kind of helping give those verbal cues so that you can relate them in your physical body. I wanted to just recap before I go into a couple questions, just a couple things that I loved from what you said. So don't mind me, I'm just going to quote you. Um, you said, when you slow down your breath, your mind slows down with it. And I just loved that. I thought that was such a good point. And I like, and also, like you said, when you get out of the practice of breathing, or if maybe you do it today but then you don't do it for a whole week or a whole month, you're not going to remember it in a stressful situation. And so that's why, like you said, it becomes something that you do proactively to kind of be there for you intuitively in the stressful moments when you have something like scans, or I don't know, dealing with toddlers, because toddlers are a lot. um, then it becomes something that you have it in your tool belt and it's just already there. Um, Another quote from you that I loved, you said, "You may not change the outer circumstances, but nothing outside of yourself needs to change in order for you to feel at peace or to feel some peace." So I loved that, just that reminder that, like, yes, the circumstances can be crazy, they can be stressful, but that doesn't mean that you have to stay in that state of stress as an individual. Um, okay, so a couple questions. And if you guys have questions, please go ahead and pull those up in the chat. Um, Make sure to pull those in the chat and drop them so we can see them, and we will cover those if we have time. I do have a couple questions already, just that I will go ahead and ask. So, for Gary, is it helpful? Like, do you feel like it's helpful as you're maybe developing this practice, or maybe with your schedule? Is it still beneficial to meditate for, say, 3 to 5 minutes a day as opposed to 30 minutes to an hour?
Oh, yes. Thank you so much for that question. Absolutely. In my opinion, the regularity is much more important than the amount of time. So I see people when they're developing a new practice who sometimes bite off more than they can chew, like I'll meditate for 30 minutes or even an hour. And I always say, whoa, whoa, just hold on a minute. That's a long time. Um, I would rather see people, and especially if you're very busy, maybe you can take 3 minutes several times a day, you know, um, or 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the evening. Those are the best times to start your day with and end your day with. But of course, if you can take a few minutes through the day, that's also very helpful. I see people set themselves up for failure when they have these. I see their enthusiasm. They love it and they want to bring it into their lives, but it often doesn't go well because then you didn't have time this day and you missed one. Well, once you miss one day, then uh, you're liable to miss another day, and then you're totally off of the wagon on that. So the smaller amount of time on a consistent basis every day, at least once a day, but try to squeeze those a few minutes in here and there. That for me, that's been what's been most helpful for me and my students.
I love that. And I feel like that takes a lot of the pressure off, right? Where you can know, and I feel like I can't quote the research, but I feel like you probably are familiar with some of the research behind it that just says a few minutes of meditating a day has more positive impact than just like trying to meditate for say an hour once a year, or
Yeah,
something like that. Like, it has a way more cumulative impact. It's called the compound effect. When you do something small over time, it compounds, and we want that compound effect to kick in. So I love that you just mentioned that it doesn't have to start big, and you would actually even recommend starting small for multiple different periods throughout the day.
yeah,
And I'm not sure if you're familiar with habit triggers, but I would kind of assume that breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If you eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, maybe attach it to those habits before you eat. Do some breath work for like 3 minutes or 2 minutes or whatever it looks like for you. Um, Giri obviously has some links she's going to share with us that have some ways to support you in guiding through there. But there's also so many other apps out there,
uh,
free apps, free YouTube meditations, like things that you can use to follow something that will just guide you through 2 minutes of breath work or one
yes,
minute of breath work. Like, I mean, I feel like even if you can just start with those baby steps, that's such a big benefit. Let's
absolutely.
see.
I did give
You,
those
oh, go ahead.
links to Richard, so I'm not sure if you have those to put in the chat.
I'm not sure if we have a way to put them directly into the chat. If we do, we will. But we
Okay,
do have a place within your speaker agenda tile that we should be able, or your speaker bio, even that I believe we can add them in there.
okay,
So we will just double check with
oh,
the backstage friends and make sure that we get that added in if it's not already there.
okay.
Okay, you mentioned breathing through the stomach and just having that be a big focus as you're like becoming more aware of your breath. Um, so, would you say? I mean, maybe this is just me getting overcomplicated, but would you say, because I'm as you're talking and you're talking about anxiety in the stomach, I've had stomach issues for, I mean, most of my high school, junior high, and early adulthood, and um, it caused a lot of digestive issues and just things like that. But I can now look back, and as an adult, I can look back at those years of my life and think, wow, I had a lot of anxiety. Breath work probably would have helped me a lot. um,
Yes.
but I didn't have that tool in my tool belt at the time. So is breathing, I guess, like, is breathing through the stomach like all day the goal, or it like is, I mean, is it kind of just a mix? I'm a singer as well, so when I sing or when I'm like speaking, I breathe through my stomach. I breathe in that diaphragm. But when you have, I don't know, like just your everyday, you're just sitting and talking or talking to people, like, how, I guess my I don't really know if this is a good question, but like, how do you develop that breath in the stomach that becomes something that you just do during the day, everyday life, not just breath work time?
Well, for me, I think that just taking 5 minutes to practice the deep abdominal breathing and really um, accentuating that in those 5 minutes. Then the rest of the day, you're not really pushing your belly right out, but you are still maintaining some awareness that, yes, I'm breathing in my belly. I'm not pushing it way out like I am in the 5 minute practice, but I'm still maintaining that balance between the belly, the diaphragm area, and the chest. So if at first people start to notice generally because I ask them if you feel like you can't notice all day, when you feel some anxiety, then notice,
Mhm.
oh, where am I breathing right now? Oh,
Mhm.
there I go. I was breathing in my chest again. Okay, back to the belly. And so, whenever you notice, just throughout the day, some people have even put their timer on their watch, to check in every half hour just to notice how my breath is. Oh, there I go again. I was holding my breath. Okay,
Yeah,
back to the.
I feel like that's a good idea. That timer idea is a really good thing. I feel like I could do that because that is something that myself and my therapist have been working on is that I don't breathe. And like I'll take those shallow breaths to be able to talk, but that I'm not getting full oxygen. Um and that makes a big difference. Like you said, when you can just recognize like, oh, whoa, like and then just notice it and then just take a good deep breath and kind of get back into that muscle memory again. So I guess that's maybe the answer to the question is just that you have to develop the stomach breathing kind of like a muscle, like where you practice engaging it, say with weightlifting, but then you're not going around all day with lifting weights. You still
Right.
are holding your core and you're still, engaging your shoulder muscles or whatever muscles you just worked that day, your leg muscles, your glutes, like whatever it is, you're still engaging those muscles, but you're not carrying the weights around all day. So it's kind of the same thing. You practice in the breath work and then you just notice throughout the rest of the day and you kind of just use it as muscle memory as it comes. Um, okay,
Yes.
my last question. In the cancer diagnosis world, what would you say would be maybe your if someone is maybe listening to this and going, okay, well, I'm anxious all the time, and they just feel anxious about trying to do more, even though this is something that we know is going to help, right? It's always going to help, but just the idea of trying to fit it into their schedule or to remember to do it can feel tricky. So, as far as someone who maybe is newer to the diagnosis or who's in a really stressful situation, what would you say are good times in the maybe the cancer world of appointments or things to focus on breath work beforehand so that they can go into those appointments feeling their best?
I'm sorry, I wasn't clear on the question. Like just before the appointment, or?
So I guess I'm just wondering if you would recommend breath work like ahead of time before certain appointments or
Oh,
things that are
yes,
happening.
absolutely. Yeah, and even at the appointment, if necessary, some of the things would be um, okay to do even during the appointment, um, while you're getting some kind of a treatment that might not be very
So
comfortable.
basically, it's always a good idea to do your breath work. It's never
Yes,
going to be a bad idea.
I can't
If you
think of
have
one.
scans and you're anxious, breath work. If you're making dinner and you burnt it, breath work. Like all kinds of good things. Okay. Well, I think that is all the questions that I can see from the chat and that I had written down. So, Gary, thank you so much. I loved, honestly, for me, this was just a good pause in the day. This was just a good pause for me, like just as one of the people behind the scenes back here, because I have found myself not breathing and I'm like, "Oh, this is what I needed. I needed this breathing reminder and practicing time." So I appreciate you teaching us and allowing us the time to practice some of this breath work. And we hope that we'll be able to stay in touch with you more. So thank you again for being with us.
Thank you so much for asking me. It's a pleasure.
All right. Namaste.